one-to-one health coaching with people. So say, for example, you can refer yourself through the wellbeing service, or people get referred by the GP. So there's different ways into it. So say, for example, you referred yourself and you said, I want help with nutrition and exercise. Basically what would happen there is you'd get a call from someone, you'd get a call from a wellbeing hub. They'd then ask you, like triage you in terms of asking questions. They would then pass you on to a health trainer. So I think there's 9 of us. So you'd get passed on to a health trainer. They'd organise an appointment. We'd speak to you, ask you it is whatever you need help with. And then similar to almost like a personal trainer, but without actually exercise part. So it'd be a case of we'd ask you loads of questions around what you want to change, and then we'd put a plan in place. So we see people on average of 6 times over 12 weeks. So it's a bit different now because we've got a lot more time because the numbers are lower. But the way it usually works is we'd see you every 2 weeks. We come up with a plan in terms of, so for example, you want to lose weight. So we're like, right, let's come up with a plan of what we want to do to get you there. You know what you're doing on a daily basis. And then we check in every 2 weeks. And then after 12 weeks, we kind of review your progress. So we're like, right, have you achieved what you set out to achieve? Have you not? And then there'd be a follow-up. So we follow up 3 months, 6 months, 12 months and see if you've maintained those changes over a year. We can also signpost people on. So if someone comes in, and we can do both at the same time. So if someone comes in and they're struggling with their anxiety, so for example, we can signpost them on to someone like Flourishing Minds or Minds Matter for more sort of intensive support. So in reality, our job is kind of nutrition, exercise, sleep, but then we can also do those alongside helping people with, say, exercise in terms of anxiety, but we can signpost them on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What's the kind of time frame for referrals? Because obviously we hear horrendous stories of referrals taking several weeks, as it were, to come to fruition. So is there a general time frame from a referral to getting a phone call from someone?
Flourishing Minds, which they do one-to-one coaching and they do group sessions as well. I think their turnaround is about 2 weeks. They're part of Lancashire Mind, so their turnaround, so they hope to contact, if say for example I referred you onto them, because it comes from us, it's kind of speeded up a little bit. So that referral would be around about 2 weeks. And then there are some other services where it might be a little bit more time. So if it is more intensive support someone needed, we could potentially refer them on to like Minds Matter. But I do know they've got a slightly longer waiting list just because of the amount of people that have been coming through for the current situation.
How is the easiest way to actually get in contact with you?
So I can pass your details on, or you can contact the Wellbeing Hub. So if you want, I can give out their email address. So if anyone does want some one-to-one support, or even just a chat, just to see what sort of support we can offer, I'll pass you their email address and their number, and give them a ring, and then they'll just kind of take it from there. That's something you guys would be interested in terms of taking the number down.
Definitely.
Let me just jump on the emails then, and I'll find it for you.
I will say, because I spoke to somebody from Minds Matters recently, and they're surprisingly not with the counselling side of things, not as busy as what they told, not as busy as what you would expect them to be. They think as they come out of the pandemic that they'll go one extreme to the other. It will be very sorry.
No, sorry, I'm just talking.
Yes. Oh, right. That's interesting, Mark.
Yeah, that it's, and I think a lot of people have been put off kind of counselling services because they can't do the one-to-one, face-to-face interaction other than Zoom, which does help, but not everybody is offering a Zoom service. And even those that are People are a little bit reticent and are leaving things until hopefully after the pandemic, and then I think it'll go crazy. And I would think that would be similar in most services.
Okay, so
Okay, that's certainly very interesting.
What you found is there's been a drop in people referring themselves because not as many people have been going to the doctors, just because of one, all the appointments have been done over the phone, so people are a little bit hesitant to speak about things like anxiety and stuff over the phone. They'd rather do it in person. So there's been a drop because not many people have been going to see the GP. And then also people have just been staying away in general because of the current situation.
Of course.
So like Mark said, what's going to happen is after all this is over, there's going to be a massive influx of people that are needing help.
Absolutely.
Let me just double check this is the right number, and then I'll.
Is the Wellbeing Hub, is that a council-run thing?
Yeah. So we're part of the Wellbeing Service. So like Mark talked about before when he said about Kev's part of Refresh, but they're also under the Wellbeing Service, so it's all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd heard of Mind Matters, but I hadn't heard of Flourishing Minds.
Yeah, that's more of a more recent one. Which
I contacted Mind Matters, and I had exactly the same experience as Mark. People led me to believe it would be months, but it was quite quick, you know. And I was explained the same as Mark, that because of COVID, I don't know, people stopping away, you know, and thinking they might have to do it face to face, and they didn't want to catch COVID or something, you know, there was a reduced demand.
Yeah, definitely.
But we did it over the phone with the guy. It never occurred to me to do Zoom. Well, I know it wasn't suggested, it was just done telephone.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
Hard.
How was it?
How did I find it? Well, tell you, I've had over the years, I've had about probably 100 hours of one-to-one talking therapy with, I think, about 5 different therapists. So I'm coming from, you know, I'm not coming to it new. It was quite a character, you know. It was good. I mean, I suppose you do lose a lot, really, when you're not face to face, because there were so many visual cues that are missing, and you know, it does seem mandatory, in my experience, that they have a yucca plant and some jangly music, you know, and you miss out on that. But you know, not a proper therapist if they don't have a yucca plant, I think. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But yeah, it was a character. It might be the same. I'm hopeless with names. I can't remember. You know, and it did help, yeah. Because I suppose really, when I looked at the scores, every week I had to fill in this these lists of questions. Don't you? You're the same, Mark, won't you? Every week to. But they're only about 20 questions, and I got quite fast at answering them. But after a while, they're quite useful. This was to monitor progress, you know, what place you're at. Yeah. And there were about like 4 categories. And I thought they were quite good, because I started thinking, well, why am I ticking that? And is that really true? You know, is it just every, you know, once a week? Is it really every day I feel like that? You know, and I found that very useful. Just the questions. Yeah, I found that discipline quite useful. And my scores improved greatly, really. So it was a success for me.
Good stuff.
One question that I have, and it's been an ongoing question, thinking about mental health and mood, is at what point to take medication, and at what point to say, no, I don't want to go on. It looks, David, it looks as though you could actually answer this question. Obviously, a doctor.
Well, I've got my. It's an interesting one. I don't have the answer, but I'm familiar with the question. I mean, for my sake, I've been on and off citalopram, you know, which is one of the major one of these SSRIs. What is it? Yeah. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Yeah. I've been on and off those for the last 15 years. But I retired a year ago, but we had a lot of illness last year, not COVID related or anything, but, you know, elderly parents, we lost 2 of them and this, that and the other. So we struggled and that. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because my doctor said, well, if, you know, you had something wrong with your leg, would you mind taking medicine? No. So if you've got something wrong with your mind, well, you know, because you can think like a failure. But I'm reducing mine now. So I'm now down to 10. I've got rid of the beta blockers for anxiety. And now I've reduced the citalopram down to 10 milligrams, which I think is possibly even a subclinical dose. But, you know, so, you know, you start thinking, well, is that a success? And I would say I'm neutral on it, because it's not a success if I'd be better with the medication. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
I mean, I've got a friend, and he's said to me, well, I've been on some form of serotonin based pill for 4 or 5 years, and you know, it's done very well for me. And that I think sometimes it's about side effects and things like that. That. I mean, as I say, I've steered away from it, but I noticed that if I actually go into a low mood, as it were, it really hits hard at productivity. You know, just doing things, getting on with things, tidying up an office. I do creative stuff and writing stuff, and I know I've actually said I often say to people, "Oh yeah, I'm on a roll," you know. So obviously that's the high, and you know, it's almost as if ideas are just popping into my mind left, right, and center, and then you take the opposite of that, when literally the mind's just completely numb. You know, just nothing is happening at all. Now,
Eric, I am so like that. I am so like that when I get on a roll and I have a string of good days, and then I have bad days, and that happened while I was caring for my father, and even more so since.
Well, you see, that's very interesting, that actually, because I'm a carer for my father, who's 89, and generally his mental capacity isn't bad. He's got mixed dementia, vascular and Alzheimer's. But sometimes it seems to be quite a popular, isn't it? I feel guilty in a way. I know I shouldn't do, but I feel guilty that if I'm actually not sort of on all 4 cylinders, as it were, that I'm not, you know, I'm not helping him. And sometimes I think he's actually sometimes doing better than myself, you know.
My father used to say to me, "There's nothing wrong with you." I've got a heart condition, Dad. It's interesting that David, you mentioned about beta blockers, because I was on beta blockers for my heart, and I had to come off them because.
How are you getting on with it?
Because I had to come off them because of
getting on with it.
Sorry, I had to come off them because they were making me so tired, really drowsy. Middle of the afternoon. So I was like, so I've got my father who's got mixed dementia, who was 88, 85, 86, 87, 88, and saying to me, "You're a lazy bugger." coming out with things like that. You know, every now and again, sometimes he'd be very compassionate and caring, and other times he lost in the dementia and confused, and would come out with something totally the opposite. But that was really hard work, and hard for me psychologically. And thank goodness my specialist listened to what I was saying, and he said, "Have you not been told about this other tablet that you can go on, which acts like a beta blocker?" And he said, especially for somebody of your age, you're quite a bit younger, that you've got more distance to go on this, and it will really help you. And it has, on my word, because and it was affecting my mental health. It was just because I was struggling to do the caring aspect, and I felt as though I couldn't care for myself. And I'm thinking, well, I've only got 9 months before I go back to work. How am I going to go back to work? You know, I had other things in place, and then that was before the pandemic and everything else. I mean,
again, just picking up on what you've been saying about your father's mood and behaviour, did his mood gradually become more aggressive at times, or was it a...
No, Eric, I was incredibly lucky with my father. I didn't have much aggression whatsoever with regards to his mixed dementia. Incredibly lucky like that, because I know with one of my aunts who passed away with a different kind of dementia, she was totally different as to what she was normally, and became very aggressive. And it did worry me that would be the case, but no, not at all. But there is a trick. There is a trick with in how you care for that person.
Okay.
To some degree, and it doesn't always work. But it's being aware of how to try and look after somebody with dementia, and distraction and diversion is a good thing. Because sometimes my dad would try almost kind of pull up my heartstrings and try in a very clever way, kind of manipulate my mood, and it was almost to, if he couldn't understand something, divert him away from what he was frustrated with.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. I was lucky with my dad, but I was told my dad, it was very confusing for me, because he went like that in a month, where the beginning of last June, all of a sudden he couldn't weight bear one morning. He would just started struggling a few weeks beforehand with a little bit of mobility. But all of a sudden one morning he couldn't weight bear, and 4 weeks later he was gone. And he had an incredibly good appetite, my father, for somebody who's 88, used to eat incredibly well. But I was told that's how it could be, but it was still a shock. And those sorts of things have affected me, what I've been through, and since the grieving process, plus the finality of coming back to look after my parents, because I looked after my mum initially, as well as my dad, and then so it's been
quite.
It's
Bob, welcome to the meeting. Have you unmuted?
Just excuse me a moment.
So how are you getting on with your sister? Looking after your sister?
Right, I couldn't hear the question at first. It's up and down, you know. I'm all right. Well, not so bad anyway. Just,
right.
Plodding on, you know. She had her vaccine the other week for COVID, and reacted really badly because she's on more. And we thought we might lose her, actually. But she's fine now. So
that's good.
It's just not knowing, and time will tell really whether things improve and what have you. So it's just interesting to hear other people's problems, really.
It is, isn't it? So have you not I know you were registered at carer service before when you were looking after your mother. Have you not re-registered? Why don't you do that if you haven't done it already?
I don't know. I just
Well, have a word with someone, see if we get someone to give you a phone call or something like that.
No, I registered very early on when I became a carer, and I didn't really use the service hardly. Well, just a little bit initially, but hardly once I got into caring for my father. I just found it incredibly hard to make time to do other things. And they say look after yourself and what have you. But it's so you just go so tunnel vision, and it's when you care for somebody, it comes you know, from the heart, and you just want to give everything for somebody else.
But whatever happens if you're not careful is, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. So sometimes you think it's selfish, focusing on yourself, but focusing on yourself puts you in a better position to actually help the people that you love.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, but Ryan, I did understand.
You've got to make some
when you're in that moment, it's
I think that there's almost like what a textbook says, but then when you're in front of someone, it's the emotion side, isn't it? Really, that kicks in. That sometimes overpasses the actual logic side, I mean, for me, I'd be very interested to know: is there one decent textbook or pamphlet or whatever or guide as to how to cope with caring for a person who's got dementia? Because you hear all these little snippets of strategies, or alternatively, is it simply a case of you actually make your own book because everybody's dementia is different and you learn how to okay.
I agree with that. Yeah, it is.
It all.
That's the hardest thing about it is that you can listen to other people's stories. There are crossover points with different people with different kinds of dementia, but everyone's unique. And so you do make your own book up as you go along. I read up on it. I was given a book when my father was diagnosed from Alzheimer's UK. And I read up on it, of what I could expect and all the different stages of dementia. I read it, I shut it, and I didn't open it again until after he passed away. And because I wanted to live day to day, I didn't want to live by the book and start panicking, thinking, oh, he's up to stage 6 now. Oh.
Yeah. And I know what you're talking about, that scale, as it were, the changes, the subtle changes in behavior, as it were, and things like that.
When I look back, I could just see the little things that led up to the end, and it was so quick. The last few stages, it went through those so fast, but everybody's different. So it's, that's the hardest thing about the dementia.
Yeah.
Well, shut up.
No, it's for me, it's actually very valuable, Mark. I mean, if you're comfortable talking and it's not hurtful, it's very useful hearing you share your experiences. Because one the thing that's reoccurs in my mind is that when my dad goes, I'm actually living under my dad's roof, and because there's equity release on the property, when my dad goes, because of my financial position, essentially I'm homeless, or will probably have to leave from this home, and going through all the stuff, as it were, all this furniture. It's something where, like, I'm trying to actually not have it in my mind, but sometimes it's there. Again, the rule book says live for today, live in the moment. Don't, but sometimes
I had similar, Eric. I've been fortunate in how things have worked out, but while I was looking after my father, there was a lot of uncertainty with regards to that because of what I'd done previously, and then returning to live in their home, and then the situation that I was in, and I've got 2 sisters as well. The funny thing is, Eric, it's so silly with family, is that we've never been a really particularly close because there's a bit of an age gap between myself and my 2 sisters. And one of them lives in Guernsey as well. So, we don't see each other a great deal. But the passing of both my mother and then my father, it's brought us all quite close together. And that's probably the thing, together with the help that I've had from the carers, the thing that's kept me going. Because I've had a very, very, very tough time of things, because it's made me reflect on things, and a lot's happened in a short space of time. Anyhow, again, I will say, yet again, I will shut up because I'm talking way too much.
So one of my questions, and I'm happy to listen to other people, when you get into that low mood, you've maybe had a few weeks on a high, things, lots of ideas in your head, and a bit like a bipolar thing, maybe not quite as severe as bipolar, but you just have a really low mood dip. what strategies do people use in those circumstances that I suppose in a way really help bounce back up, you know, even if you're just middle ground, that's better than being in a low ground, as it were, where you're just not doing stuff, you're just not getting on with things, you're postponing things and things, and there's no ideas. What do other people do in that? I'd be very interested to hear.
If I get very low, I force myself to do a bit of cycling or something, or go a walk.
Yeah.
The more energetic it is, you know, in other words, the more it gets me heart and lungs going.
Yeah.
The more relaxed I am afterwards, and so that helps me. But I don't always have the willpower to do that, really. So sometimes it can just be you just can't be messed with anything, really. Yeah. But I'm always glad when I do a bit of something like that. That's just one tactic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anybody else does, really. I don't take any medication for any antidepressants or anything. And I've never sought advice, really. You know, just
no. Is it because you know there's still a bit of a stigma, isn't it? You know, that men going to ask advice, you know, because we're supposed to be sort of cast iron, strong-willed people, as it were, but
not true. Yeah, I think that's you're right. That's what we're supposed to. That's a bit. I think it's a mix up. I think.
I see, Ryan, you're nodding at that point.
Yeah. I kind of agree with what Bob was saying. I think it's a very old school way of looking at things, and I think it is changing a lot, where it was this men just had to kind of get on with things and get stuff done. And it was almost like, and I think as well, it's almost like an ego thing where we feel like we don't want to be weak. We want to be strong men that provide for our families, and you know what I mean? So we don't want to show any weakness. But it's that not showing any weakness that builds up to a more serious problem. And that's why it's so good you're having a group like this, because you can come on and talk to people who are in a similar situations to yourself, and you realize, like, I think a big changing point for me, like I've had some more points in my past as well, is like realizing that it's not just you, it's pretty much everybody. But when no one talks about it, it seems like it's just you. But then when you talk to people and they say, oh, I feel like that, or no, I've done this and I've done that, you start to think, actually, it's not just me that feels crap, it's everyone. But because no one talks about it, it seems so isolating to you personally.
Yeah.
It amazes me that it's pretty universal throughout other cultures as well. It's the blokes that have to be brave, even if they're not. And I mean, for one example, there were some Masai Mara tribesmen, and they were hunting these lions with a spear. And this one guy, he stabbed it with this big spear, and the lion singled him out and went for him. And the thing was, it nearly killed him, but he continued to chase the lion as it ran away. And because he felt ashamed, he failed. He'd been very brave. I wouldn't have approached any lion with just a spear in the hand, but he felt guilty. And it's like, and you hear tales like that about Second World War guys. They do very brave things and feel guilty but failing and what have you.
Yeah.
I think there is a general pressure on blokes to be like that.
Yeah. And if you think back to where that kind of stems from, like the way we're living now in this modern world is in terms of how long we've been on the planet, it's very recent. For a long period, we were hunter-gatherers. So we lived in tribes. So men would go out and hunt, women would stay at the village and do jobs and do bits and bobs and cook and stuff. So for thousands and thousands of years, ingrained into evolution is this need for us to provide, because we'd be hunting animals and it'd be the men that brought the animals back. So that's still in us now, that's not gone away, but the society's changed around it. So it's almost like we've got this constant need to feel like we've got to provide.
Sounds like women.
That's what we used to have to do all those times. What did you say?
What do you say?
That's what it sounds like. Women are to blame for this.
Yeah.
Sorry, a joke. I jest.
Funny.
I mean, Ryan, just thinking sort of off the top of my head, you know, obviously, you know, tonight for me has been very valuable, and it's certainly because it's men focused, it's been even more valuable. Is there, or has there ever been the thought of like a buddy sharing for men who have got maybe needs in the mental health capacity? You know, because sometimes I feel you can have a group which is great, but equally sometimes if you can have a one-to-one with someone, you can share your challenges and they share their challenges. And you know, I just wondered if that ever had been thought about, discussed, either in Refresh or in your wellbeing team.
So I only started this current role about 4 months ago. So in terms of in the past, I'm not too sure, just because of how long I've been here. But there has been talk recently about it's all a bit annoying sometimes, because if there's certain groups by certain services, they have to be careful in terms of creating more groups where it's kind of like stepping on other people's toes. But we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where we talked about getting some support groups going for just men or for just women, because like you said, there's a need for it. Like if you look at suicide rates, men are way higher than women, especially in this country. If you look at mental health, like again, like it is a little bit balanced, but the men are sky high and there's not as much support available. But I think we're coming round full circle to realizing that and then putting things in place to be able to try and achieve what you just said, whether it's a one-to-one buddy system. But we have been in talks about getting like a well-being support group where most of the focus probably is going to be around mental health, and getting men together and trying to it's just getting people to commit and come. Like Kevin said at the beginning, it's been difficult enough in terms of moving this online and the numbers dropping. So I think back when things start getting more in person, I think there's going to be a massive push, especially after what we've been through in this last year, to make more things like that available for general members of the public. Because also, like Mark said before, like there's going to be a massive influx of people coming through who need support and help. And I think just it seems so simple, but just talking to, like I said before, just talking to people who are in a similar position can massively help.
Definitely.
In terms of, it's just like that therapy, but without having to necessarily pay to go and see a therapist or be on a waiting list for 6 months. It needs to be.
It was interesting, at the hospital there was a feature on the radio and in the paper about it. They've set up these things called listening lounges, where nurses can go and offload to each other, you know, because of what's happening with COVID and things they've seen. Obviously, they're stuck by confidentiality. They can't speak outside, so they go into these places and they're able to share their experiences that they've witnessed.
Yeah.
And they even have a therapy dog that goes around and they can, you know, play with it, and it sort of helps them relax, you know, and helps them more able to talk about their experiences, you know, what they've experienced on the ward. You know, it's quite interesting.
There's lots of new things that are going to come out, and there's a lot of research being done in America around certain things to help people open up in the first place. So this might seem a little bit crazy me saying this, but they're doing research in America around things like MDMA, psilocybin, which is basically magic mushrooms, and some of these psychedelic drugs and compounds, and using them in a clinical way to, first of all, get people to actually open up. They've been doing clinical trials in America with MDMA in terms of getting families to open up with each other and talk to each other. So there are loads of different things kind of coming full circle in terms of looking at things in a bit of a different way, because in terms of like the medication that we give people, it's like you're just plastering over a wound that keeps bleeding, and you need to get to the source and fix it. Whereas you've been going to the doctors and you say I've got anxiety and they go, here's some medication, off you go. But it's not really what you need. You kind of need those support groups. And like Kev said, even if it's just having someone to ring up and be able to talk to and tell them your problems, that therapy can be a lot more beneficial for you than just taking a tablet and just dulling it over. Like the tablets are there for a purpose and they can definitely help people, and some people definitely need them. But I don't think that's the complete answer. I think it needs to be a wider variety of methods and not just here's some tablets, off you go, take them.
Yeah.
A lot of carers do tend to become very isolated, especially if they're looking after elderly people. It's a one-to-one thing, and they're usually with that person for a very long time of the day, very something. What we could do with a carer service is a sitting-in service where somebody comes around, look after that person while you go off and, have some time to yourself. That would be a good look at, I think. Yeah. Especially all the activities they offer, people can't get on them. They just can't get away from the person looking after you.
I mean, I must admit, I've paid. We have a housekeeper stroke carer for my father, and I know I've paid essentially. She's very reasonable. She's just £10 an hour, just to be able to have her check my dad's okay, check that there aren't any falls or anything like that, and know that he's well looked after, just to give me some time away. So definitely having that respite, and it is very much appreciated.
I think one of my difficulties is one of my health issues. Sorry,
I'm just saying, you a carer? Have you just come on? Because we all dipped everybody in the borough if they wanted to come. So you don't have to be a carer to be here today. I'm still wondering if you are you a carer at all?
Oh, me?
Oh, David.
Oh, David, right.
What? Sorry?
I'm saying, are you a carer? Have you just come on to get some advice about health?
I am a carer, yeah. I mean, I'm on my third elderly person in a year.
Oh.
We've already lost. When I first started, I'm a bit like Mark, really, because I was caring for my dad a year ago, and then he went very much down in a month, and then anyway. But I'm caring for my mum now. She's 92, but she's living in her own home. So, and my wife's had a stroke.
Wow.
And my sister's had cancer. Well, so we've got a lot of things on, but it's all manageable at the moment. I was going to say, when I thought about this, one of my health issues is this bloody drinking, really. I've noticed, I mean, 14 units a week, to be honest, I will be hitting that in the night, not every night, but that's only 4 or 5 pints, isn't it? And I don't want you to get the wrong impression, like last night I had nothing, but that 14 a week's a laugh, I'll struggle to get under 50 a week, really. I'd have to make a bit more effort there.
See, I hardly drink alcohol. I'm an ex-smoker. I've not smoked for 7 years or so, and I'm so glad I gave up, because I could not do something like that now with my heart condition and my breathing when I'm having a bad day. But my addiction is, here we go, Ryan. My addiction is chocolate. I I'm addicted to sweet stuff. Now you laugh, but it is, being an ex-smoker, it is, I know full well it's an absolute addiction, because I can really binge on chocolate. You know, it's not just having a piece. I can have a bar, I can go and have 3 bars, I can get a big bar of chocolate and consume it within an hour. And so I don't have a beer belly, but I have a chocolate belly.
I think with me
that's something I'd like. That's something I'd love to get rid of. It's funny, we were talking about mental health and weight issues. Funnily enough, just this afternoon, I saw something that was recorded. It sounded like in the last couple of weeks, where James Corden, you probably know him, the comedian and host and what have you, who now does a lot of work in America.
That's right.
He was on with Oprah on a Zoom call, and he was, and this just shows it doesn't matter about money or situation or whether you've got a nice family or whatever, but he was very emotional, and part of the talk was about men opening up. And he was talking about all the references, even when sometimes he has good reviews, his weight is mentioned quite often. That is this chubby character, this funny chubby guy. And he said, you know, and it's something that he's just got used to, but he'd like to lose a bit of weight. And he feels when he does it, he feels disappointed when it doesn't happen. And all the mental things about that he's had to contend with during his career, and that he finds it tough, and he wants to actually lose a bit of weight, he said, for his family, for his young children, because he knows that it is, as he gets that bit older, it is affecting him in some ways. So, you know, again, it just shows that how tough it is for men to open up, and that's what Oprah was saying. You know, it's very rare that she gets anybody that will open. And sometimes she just get people who they come on the show, and then afterwards, back in the green room, they especially the men, they'll mention things that would have been great to have mentioned on the show, but they didn't want to, either out of privacy, but mainly because they're men and they don't talk about such issues in public.
You know, I've talking about things. I mean, I've retired last year, but before that, I worked at BA Systems in engineering, you know, in like an office environment. But for the last 2 years, I used to go to work in women's clothes, maybe it's 1 or 2 days a week. Now, it's funny because I used to, you discuss that, you know, with therapists, you discuss that with your family, and you discuss it with your GP, and you know, I could tell lots of tales about that, stories about that. But I used to discuss it with women, because I don't know why, because you think, well, wearing a dress, well, that's the one thing. I mean, I don't identify as LGBT, so, but latterly I started discussing it more with men, you know, and it's interesting how I've noticed how that, you know, it's an interesting thing to, you know, that I discuss it with men more now.
Well, you discuss it with 500 people.
I go around town, you know, I've been in the drummer's arms in a skirt, you know, I'm quite out there, you know.
They're like in the 1970s, all the pop stars used to dress up more or less like Mike Bowl and
Yeah, I was reading, what is it? What's the Rolling Stones, Phillips? Well, what's he called? Keith Richards. Oh, yeah. Somebody gave me his biography. I was reading it, and when they went to the States, they were like, you know, as you go outside New York and you're in what they call flyover America or whatever, that's how they were looked at. Because they got long hair, they were looked at as feminine. And that was why people would be aggressive towards them. It never occurred to me, really, because I don't think of the Rolling Stones like that. But it's an interesting subject. I get more, the more I read about it, the more confused I get. But
not reading.
That is a way, though, of relaxing.
Depression usually helps.
Yeah. Men are you know, if you dress differently, you're getting off the pedestal, aren't you? The need to perform, to be up there, to be the achiever, to know the answers. Changing costume can be relaxing. It is one of the reasons men cross-dress, to reduce anxiety.
Interesting.
Anybody else?
Brian.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought.
I guess though, that's what helps, like you said, if it helps reduce anxiety and kind of get you off that pedestal, then.
I think with the drinking, you know, when you're saying about your chocolate, what I've discovered is I'm quite happy not drinking, but what I think is if I have a drink, I'm very much more likely to have a few more. Do you find that with chocolate?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I suppose when you have one drink, maybe your inhibitions are reduced.
So in terms of
mine's more like, it's more habit forming, and it's more the pangs. So it's like if I'm to compare it to smoking, it's like a habit, and it's that one fuels another. You know, it makes me laugh when I hear people say about smoking and it relaxes them, and I'm thinking it doesn't. It has exactly the opposite effect, because it exacerbates one, it makes you crave for the next one, for the next one, for the next one. It's that cycle that you need to break, and that's exactly how I feel with chocolate.
There's also a lot of times we use it as a coping mechanism for stress.
Yeah.
About your whole life, it's just basically about stress management. Like how you manage the stresses in your life will determine where you're going to be at, as well as your mindset. So like, I think usually when people think of stress, they just think of stress as being bad, but stress is good as well. Like you need stress to change. So like you think about like exercise as stress, I don't know, having a cold shower or something, it's all stress, but some are better than others. And the way, like when Bob was saying before, in terms of what helps him when he's feeling a bit crappy, he's going for a cycle. And the way that works is because the more stressful situations you choose to put yourself in, then helps you deal with other stresses in your life. So I've gone from being quite active when I was younger, playing a lot of rugby, going to uni, drinking a lot, eating a lot, putting loads of weight on, feeling really shit, and then going full circle on that and doing loads of exercise and stuff. And what I've realized from going through that process of kind of being quite fit, being really unhealthy, and then being quite fit again, is that if I'm exercising a lot and I'm choosing to put myself in stress, when stress comes from other things, whether it be relationships or financial, whatever, I can deal with it better because I've built a tolerance up to stress. It's a different type of stress, but it's still stress. So like a lot of times when we eat loads of chocolate or we drink, it's because we can't deal with the stress. So we kind of just use that as a coping mechanism, because when you're eating your chocolate or you're drinking, you're not thinking about the other things that are stressing you out. So it's kind of like you can start using it as a way to escape from your problems. Whereas you could see it as like that could be an unhealthy coping mechanism compared to what Bob did, which is a healthy coping mechanism. It's just helping you deal with stress, but one's a little bit better than the other, because what happens with drinking or eating chocolate or binge eating food, it's short-term gratification, which leads to like more chronic problems down the line. So say, for example, if you're drinking, when you're doing it, you feel great, you feel really good, you're having a laugh, everything's, do you know what I mean? But then the days after, you feel worse than you did before you drank. So it's like it solves the problem short term, but long term leaves you in a worse position. Whereas, like Bob said, when you exercise, you do get some immediate benefit from it, but it helps you more in the long term. And it's the same for meditation. Like, I used to think of meditation as like, it's just a lot of bollocks. But then I started meditating.
Yeah, I know.
it only took about 2 or 3 months until I really started noticing the benefit. I was really calm. I could deal with problems. I was thinking really clearly, and I was thinking, wow, like, I think as humans, we do this all the time. We go for short-term solutions, and it makes us feel better in the moment, but in the long term, it kind of makes us feel worse. Whereas the things that don't necessarily give us the benefit there and then are usually what give us the benefit long term. If that makes sense. So we need to try and move away from this like immediate gratification and do sort of like long-term success. Although it does seem really difficult, and sometimes when you do feeling shit, you just think, I'm just going to do this because I want a quick fix. But those quick fixes just make the problem worse down the line.
I have been buying giant bars of chocolate.
Oh, you say you're a man of my own heart, right?
And I've never been a chocoholic, but yeah, the other month I've stopped again now. But yeah, it's strange that. And there's been the odd week where I've been drinking at home, which again I think some of this is the COVID, the lockdown situation as well.
Lockdown liver, they call it, don't they?
Lockdown liver.
So I've tend to go to drink the alcohol. Yeah, chocolate really. Yeah.
I think I might know you, Bob.
Yeah.
Do you know my mum, Denise Howarth?
Well, my mate, yeah.
That's my mum.
Mate Ryan.
I thought when I listened to your voice, I thought, I'm
you
sure
were a little lad. You were just a little lad.
Bob's my uncle-in-law.
Oh, now.
Oh.
How are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah. Yeah.
What are the chances I see one?
Bumped into Denise and Chantel.
Yeah.
They see Pat as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The last time you saw her?
Last week, I think. They were near Holly Tree, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, to be doing all right. Yeah.
You are?
You're doing all right.
Yeah, I'm all right. Plodding along, a bit bored, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So now Ryan's going to
get meditation as well.
Yeah, no, it's not been easy. It's been a difficult year for everyone. I think it's just the up end, and I don't think anyone can say it's not affected them, because it definitely has affected everyone. And me personally, I think being at home a lot has been quite challenging. I'm used to just being really active, being up and about. I used to work in the gym, so I'd be there 10, 12 hours a day, and just being sat at home behind a laptop has been quite difficult. But and like Bob said before, like, I find that sometimes I do eat loads of chocolate to make myself feel better, and then sometimes, do you know what I mean? And then sometimes I'll go and force myself to go for a bike ride. And like Bob said, you might not feel like you want to do that, but then once you do it, you usually feel better nearly every time. And if you can kind of try and keep that in your head, like, I know I feel better if I do it. And that can sometimes, and the more you do that, the more, do you know what I mean? So for example, you've not done any exercise for months, it's difficult to remember how it did make you feel better. But the more frequently you do it, the more in your mind those memories are of, actually, no, I felt shit last week, but I forced myself, even if it's just go for a walk. I did that. Go for a walk and I feel better, so I'm going to do it again.
I did that on Monday. I just went for a walk, just half an hour, just round the block, and I felt great. I cooked better even when I came back. But it refreshed me. It made me feel so much better just to get a bit of fresh air.
Yeah.
And just taking it at my own pace. And again, it's because I'm always listening to my heart and how my heart's reacting, how I'm breathing. So going up hills, you know, I do it without even thinking, but sometimes I do it and then then all of a sudden I feel breathless, or I'll bump into someone and say, "Are you all right?" And I think, "Yeah, I'm fine." "You sound a bit breathless." "Oh, thanks, great." But it's just going out and it just did make me feel good. And I was going to go out the last couple of days, but it's been raining on and off, so I had other things to do. But tomorrow the forecast is good, so I'll go for another walk. And just, I think the thing is, I find sometimes what I've got in my mind is a lot bigger, and I end up putting myself off by thinking too big.
Yeah,
The challenge is too big, so I don't make the first steps. And I think, as I did on Monday, I just thought I'll just have this little walk, and then it increased like twice in size.
Yeah.
So it ended up being like a 30 to 40-minute walk, and I felt great for it afterwards.
Yeah.
But I had in my mind that I was going to go walking along the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, and it was going to be half an hour, probably make an hour, and then probably another hour coming back. And I just thought, well, just get yourself out of the house. And just to get myself out of the house, I just walk down some different streets and different roads. And I just felt just good for it. And as well, you don't realise sometimes you get so cooped up in the home environment just to do that. I couldn't do that when I was caring for my dad. That was the problem, just something like that. When my father passed away, I felt almost... I remember saying to people, I feel really bad because it's almost like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders initially. And all of a sudden I found myself going out, getting in the car and thinking, I can't go out. I've got my dad to look. Oh no, I've not. You know, because it had become force of habit. And then lockdowns come and my ongoing work situation, where I found myself kind of back in this situation where I'm kind of, I'm in lockdown, but no one to look after. And there's not a great deal I can do at present, other than wait for the injection and hopefully some kind of normality to return. And that's why I'm trying to get involved more with the carers and doing some more voluntary work with them, because I want to give a bit back. Because that's kind of what I miss, you know. I feel a bit kind of selfish at the moment, but it is good to be able to think about myself, but it's still tough, it's still hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
Guys, I've got my dad calling, so I'm going to have to love you and leave you. But Ryan, Kevin, thank you so much.
Leave it, Dave.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been a good session, and great group of guys to talk with and share, and have suggestions. So for me, it's been really good actually.
Do you want me to just quickly give you this number for the
yes, please,
for the
Ryan.
call, just so you can take that down before you jump off. So it's Blackburn 01254 682 037.
And what was that? Was that the Wellbeing Hub?
Yeah. So there's 3 ladies at work. Obviously, they're all working from home, but their laptops are
all connected.
linked to that number.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you do want any help, whether it be nutrition, exercise, sleep, but then there's also all the other services we can refer on to, so like smoking cessation, if there's any problems with housing, financial. So it's literally like anything you can think of if you need help. We can either help you directly or we can refer you on to a different service that'd be in a better position to give you support.
Really good. Yeah.
So we could just literally pick up the phone and say to one of these 3 lovely ladies, "What can you do for me?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they'll kind
with regards to nutrition, with regards to exercise.
And if you want to join the health walking group when we resume, when that is, we don't really know. Just phone the carer service and let them know, and I'll let you know where we're meeting when we.
Well, Kevin, I'm in touch with Coulson. The only problem is because my father passed away. I've only got. I could only, apart from the volunteering side, I could only have so many services until a year on from my father passing. So that comes to an end basically early July. So. But yeah, I'd love to get involved.
Anyway, we're Refresh as well. It's a borough thing anyway. It covers a Refresh walker. There are other ones. There's a long list of, if you find our well demanding enough, you know, you can go on other ones. There's progressions with it starts off and decrease it. You don't walk wheels necessarily, but you know, you're always welcome to come.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a move anyway. Lovely to meet you all.
Yes.
Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
Eric. All
Hope
the
we
best.
can have, likewise, I hope we can have more sessions like this in the future. Once a month, yeah, would be really good, if not sooner. Thanks anyway. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Care.
Bye now.
Bye.
I'm going to have to dib out as well because I've got to go and put the fish pie in. Otherwise, they'll be lynching
This
me.
thing's not working.
I love the session and it's nice to meet you all.
Lovely.
Hope we
likewise.
meet again.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Take
take
care,
care,
David.
David.
I'll try and figure out how
Okay,
to
thanks.
leave.
Bye.
Bye.
And then there were just a few.
Just a few. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or we could just leave it there if not?
I'm very happy with that, Ryan. It's been helpful. I hope you haven't minded me going on about personal stories.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
What have you? It was I did not quite kind of know what to expect from the group.
Yeah.
But it was nice to be, because I'm in this life after caring group at the moment, and it is predominantly women, which I enjoy. It's great, and because I'm a natterbag anyhow, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's just nice to be able to be in other men's company and find out, you know, how they've been caring or are still caring for relatives or loved ones. So I just swapping those little notes about dementia and what have you, and it's because Eric was asking questions that it was like kind of, God, you know, the questions that he wanted answers to. It's like what I was asking 12 months ago and
Yeah.
Before that, and so yeah.
I think it just shows how beneficial these sort of groups can be for people like yourself, do you know what I mean? Because I think that's when we learn the most stuff, like you said, swapping experiences and talking to people who are in similar situations.
So what are you doing exactly, Ryan, with your role? Are you still doing exercise things or?
So I do a little bit of personal training on the side. Some of my clients I do, and then I just do this. So I'm full-time as a health trainer. So our job's been a little bit mishmashed recently. So we do a little bit of contact tracing for the local authority for Blackburn Council, which is a couple of days a week, and then I have appointments with clients, like I spoke about before. So we set goals, and then we either educate on what needs to happen, and it's just like coaching. So we sort of coach people in terms of making some changes, whatever that might be. As well as signposting people onto different services if that's appropriate.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll be back in touch with Kevin and just drop him a line. I've got the girls who referred me on from the hospital as well, because what benefited me, of course, something that I didn't know about, and I was a bit like immediately when I was diagnosed with that is, what does this mean? What can I do? And because they're specialists in being aware about people with heart conditions, that helped going back to a gym and finding out that cardio really is not of great benefit to me, because I can't train to get fit, if you like, or I can only train to a certain degree to get fit. I can't push myself to bring the heart rate down because my heart isn't operating to full capacity anyhow. And so that it was great to be able to know that I could do things and do weights supervised and have somebody on hand to advise me. And it was just that I had to give that up because my father was getting worse, and then of course then with lockdown and everything. So I will try and follow that up and see as and when I can resume that sort of thing. Because another thing that I found with that, Ryan, when I went to and I was still struggling when I was going to the gym, was psychologically, because I'm thinking, you know, I'd be on treadmill and I'd be like, I'm thinking I'm 40, well, I'll be 45, then I'm 47 now. And I'll be thinking, you know, I'm like just doing fast walking on here, and this person who sometimes there'd be somebody on the next one to me who'd be a little bit older than me and was going flat out, and I'm thinking, I used to be, I surely I could do, and I was told, no, focus on what you're comfortable with within your parameters. Don't worry about that. A certain amount of that will come with time, but don't think that you can. Yeah. But I found that really hard psychologically, because I'm thinking, you know, and even now I do think, I think, you know, when I get breathless, I start beating myself up, because I'm thinking, you know, this shouldn't be happening to me. Yeah. The only time I get told that I'm young anymore, Ryan, is to say a usual medical professional that I've not seen before will say, "Oh, you're young to have heart failure." It's that double-edged sword. It's like, it's nice to refer to as young, but it's kind of. Anyhow, I will go and I will leave you in the good company of your friend. Thanks for all that. So I will give the girls a call and I'll find out where I can go to explore this. With regards to us having another session, will you be involved in that, or will Coulson arrange for somebody else to be involved in that if that's what happens? Or
I think, to be honest, if this is going to happen again and they want us to get involved, it's probably better me coming than just sending a random person every time. So if this does get organised again and they want us to come, and Coulson wants us to come back in, I'll happily do that. Right. Okay. We'll see. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for your time. You take care. Take care, and bye. Is it
Bob?
Bob. Sorry, it's because it just says side pan on here, Bob.
Yeah, that's my email. I think you're doing just the right thing, just doing a bit, you know, rather than trying to do a lot.
Yeah. And don't beat yourself up about it. Do you know what I mean? I think beating yourself up about it is then what stops you from doing stuff. So it's very easy to get in this mindset of like, oh, this is where I'm at, what's the point? But that's kind of a block. It kind of like almost enjoy the process.
Changed that mindset, Ryan, because I've been totally focused on initially looking after my mum and still working full time, and then part time, and then taking a career break to look after my father, and so it's all been focused on not me. And then all of a sudden, it's just about me, and it's hard. You know, you'd think that would be, oh, it's easy, you can just get on with your life, but I've just found it quite the opposite. All right, lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time and for your help. See you, Bob. See you, right?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.